do things like look at demographics and crunch numbers and try and help these guys figure out what's going on here. And I'm going to sort of back up to, I don't know how many feet above the Earth this is, but it's a long way compared to these. These are very close. Because there's a singular situation here that I haven't seen so much elsewhere. When in 1950, you had a population of over 500,000 within the city of Cincinnati. Since that time, the Cincinnati MSA has grown in population. But Cincinnati has dropped in population by 41%, which leaves you with a lot. There are several ways to look at it. It means that you had at least 50,000 households leave. But it also means that I need to figure out how to explain this simply. One of the things that just blew me away when I got the whirlwind tour of Cincinnati is that your buildings and your neighborhoods are among some of the most beautiful buildings and neighborhoods I've ever seen. Avondale, I was told, was a very difficult place for some of the residents, and yet I'm seeing apartment buildings that are finer than anything that exists in my home city. Right there. I saw two of them in a row. Beautiful, beautiful buildings. Beautiful houses. And so I thought, well, what's going on here? I think what we have is undervalued. And rather than look at that as a problem, I think what it means is that there's an opportunity. Tomorrow you're going to hear from Kathleen Norris, and she's going to tell you about the interesting convergence in demographics between Generation Y and aging boomers like me, who comprise about 70% of the American population now. And what are those groups, those two groups, looking for? As she puts it, one group wants and the other one, says old people, need walkable neighborhoods so that you don't need a car, a great sense of community. They want services within walking distance. What else is there?
They want gathering places.
Gathering places.
They want shopping places because neither the millennials nor the baby boomers is terribly interested in online shopping. They still like to do face-to-face transactions. They want good transit because one doesn't want to drive and the other increasingly will be unable to drive.
There you go. So that's quite a list. In other words, their interests,
good coffee.
Their interests are converging. And what that means is that you have, what this is showing, you have, without adding a tremendous amount of density, you have neighborhoods that used to work if you just could bring the people back and fill the houses up. They did work. They have proven to work in the past. But they need to be walkable again. And what happened is that as this is a city that grew up on streetcars. That's why you have communities at the tops of hills and then beautiful woods in between, parks in between, and so on. Because the community grew up on streetcars, and when traffic came through, cars came through, and people could drive to their mortgage limit out in the suburbs, the traffic changed those little districts. Now you could get in a car and be anywhere. Well, that's changing now because people are getting a little tired of driving everywhere. They don't like the congestion. They don't like riding along those big corridors. They really don't like walking along those big corridors. So if there's a way for us to bring back some of that original aesthetic that people had when they built the city, they knew how to do it right. Their original aesthetic sense about what people wanted was right. Streets that were walkable. Places that could be approached from the neighborhood so that you take the streetcar, you get home, and you get off at the streetcar stop, and there's all the retail around you, and you make a little circuit of the Main Street district, and then you walk home with your groceries in hand and your home. It's so simple, so convenient, and we've forgotten that. We think the car is convenient. You folks had it right 100 years ago. Really right. So the point of this map, it doesn't look great. This is building value to land value. You take the building value on the site over the land value. Typically, that ought to be a ratio of about 3. If you think about it, it means that if the land is worth $50,000, you add $100,000 for the house, and the whole package together is $150,000. Now, there are places here where the land value the building value is equal to either 0 to less than half of the land. That means you're looking either at a place that could be demolished, or because you have such fantastic housing stock here and people left and things became devalued, it may mean that you have a beautiful brick and stone structure built by masons who were masters at their craft that can still be as good as it ever was with a little help. So these may represent opportunity sites. So the brown is the stuff that's worth, where the buildings are worth less than half the land. The little bit of yellow is where it's from half to 1 times the value of the land. And then everything in gray is stuff where it's worth more than the land. And it's worth more than the land in some places considerably by hundreds of times. It just depends on what it is the skyscraper's worth. So the reason I put this up is that it's actually very, very detailed. If you squint, you can see little teeny tiny parcels. But if you look here in red, these are your districts of your little retail districts in the places. And I think what you're going to see is that there are some large areas that, Park, of course, has no improvement. So for instance, Mount Airy Park is going to show up as brown here. But when you're out in the neighborhoods looking, you're going to see a lot of little opportunities, many opportunities where we could start renovating or filling in and bringing back the vitality of those neighborhoods. And this can, at some point later, the map can be used by the city to do an inventory of where the opportunities are for change that are most likely to